The hall of the Galactic Council was larger than anything built by human hands. Its ceiling was made of layered crystal and light, stretching high above like the inside of a living star. Rows of alien delegates sat in curved tiers that spiraled upward, each one representing a world or an empire beyond Earth's imagination. Some were scaled and cold-blooded, others covered in soft feathers or plated with metal shells. Every movement echoed through the chamber like a whisper of judgment. At the center stood 3 humans dwarfed by the scale of the hall and the 1,000 eyes fixed on them. The session began with a deep chime that shook the air. The arbiter of the council, a translucent being of shifting silver membranes, floated above the central platform. Its voice, translated into 100 languages at once, thundered through the hall. Representatives of the planet called Earth, you stand before the Galactic Council accused of territorial intrusion and aggressive expansion into protected sectors. How do you plead? Ambassador Rachel Miles did not answer right away. Her face was calm, unreadable, the kind of stillness that made even predators uncertain. Beside her stood Commander Elias Ward, a quiet man whose posture was sharp enough to cut glass, and a young aide named Jordan, who kept glancing nervously at the towering alien forms around them. Rachel took a step forward. Her voice was calm, clear, and carried through the chamber without the translator's help. We plead curiosity, she said. The word lingered in the silence that followed. The arbiter's color shifted slightly, a sign of irritation. Curiosity, it repeated, is no defense for violation of interstellar boundaries. Your species has entered 6 restricted sectors, interfered with trade routes, and constructed defense stations on disputed moons. Do you deny this? Rachel raised her eyes toward the massive holographic display that flickered above them. It showed glowing maps of human outposts scattered across the outer edges of known space. We do not deny, she said. We only ask a question. Why are those sectors restricted? A murmur spread through the assembly. Dozens of alien voices overlapped. The arbiter's tendrils pulsed brighter. Because those regions contain species under protection. Because the Council maintains order and balance in the galaxy. You have broken that balance. Rachel tilted her head slightly. Order, she said softly. Balance. That's interesting. Because when we first reached those systems, there were already Council fleets mining the planets, stripping their resources. The protected species you mentioned, none of them lived there anymore. The words hit the room like a shockwave. The arbiter hissed, the sound of glass grinding on stone. Are you accusing the Council of deceit? I'm only observing facts, Rachel replied. We are new to this galaxy, yes. We know our place, small as it may be, but humans have a habit of checking things for themselves. We investigate, we test, and when someone lies to us, she let the sentence trail off, her gaze sweeping across the sea of alien faces. We remember. From the upper tiers, a delegate from the Ulnari Confederation rose, its long arms covered in metal vines. Humans are dangerous. Even now, they defy the Council in public session. They must be contained before their curiosity consumes us all. Several others agreed, their voices merging into a rising chorus. The air thickened with hostility. But Rachel only smiled, and in that moment, it was not the smile of someone cornered. It was the smile of someone counting moves in advance. Elias Ward, still silent, pressed a small device on his wrist. The holographic display above shifted without command. Data flooded the chamber. Council fleet movements, hidden mining operations, intercepted communications showing secret deals between Council species and pirate factions. Gasps filled the room. The arbiter's light dimmed as it processed what it saw. Rachel's voice was steady. Humanity is not here to threaten anyone. We came because we thought we were joining something greater than ourselves. But the moment we arrived, we realized the truth. This Council is not a government of unity. It is an empire of fear. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the arbiter raised one of its tendrils and the images vanished. You presume much, human, it said coldly. You think you can intimidate us with stolen information? You misunderstand your situation. The Council commands entire armadas. You command nothing. Rachel did not look away. You're right, she said. Compared to you, we are small. Our fleets are few, our worlds are young, and our technology is still climbing toward yours. But here's something you might not understand. She leaned forward slightly. We learn faster than any species you've ever met. The arbiter's eyes shimmered like burning glass. Then learn this. The Terran domain is hereby declared a restricted and occupied territory. All human settlements beyond Sol will be dismantled. Your fleets will disarm, and your governments will submit to council oversight. The chamber erupted in sound. Delegates shouted. Reporters transmitted the decision across the galaxy, and the three humans stood unmoving in the storm. Jordan swallowed hard, his voice barely audible. Ambassador, what do we do now? Rachel turned her head slightly toward him and smiled. We go home. The Arbiter's gaze followed them as they walked toward the exit. You cannot run from the council, it said. Rachel paused at the doorway and looked back. Who said anything about running? When the humans left the chamber, the silence that followed was heavy and uncertain. The council members murmured among themselves, uneasy for reasons they couldn't explain. Outside, in the cold light of the galactic capital's artificial sun, Commander Ward touched his wrist again, sending a coded transmission that rippled silently through the human communication web. Back on Earth, deep under the oceans, ancient command centers awakened. Satellites turned toward the stars. Subspace relays hummed to life. Across the outer colonies, people stopped what they were doing as emergency signals reached them. The words were simple, quiet, but carried a weight no one could mistake. Directive 7 confirmed. Prepare for defensive mobilization. Inside her transport vessel, Rachel stared out at the glittering sprawl of the council's city. They think this is over, she said. Elias looked at her reflection in the glass. They don't know us yet, she nodded slowly. No, she said, but they will. Far behind them, in the council chamber, the Arbiter hovered in thought. One of its aides approached. Shall we begin the invasion planning, Honored One? Yes, the Arbiter replied. Send the fleets. Bring me their world. The aide hesitated. If they resist? The Arbiter's form darkened to obsidian. Then we will show them what power truly means. But somewhere in the vast dark between stars, Earth's quiet transmissions reached every corner of human space. Ships vanished from trade routes, colonies went dark, and unknown movements began near the borders of Terran territory. Humanity did not send threats. They sent silence. And in that silence, the galaxy felt something new, an unease it had never known before. Rachel's last words echoed in the council chamber's recording logs, played again and again by analysts and military officers who could not understand her meaning. We plead curiosity, she had said. No one yet realized what that really meant. Curiosity was the first step. The next was preparation, and after that came something far more dangerous. By the time the council discovered what humans were preparing for, it would already be too late. The great chamber of the Galactic Council burned with light as the session began. Thousands of alien representatives filled the circular arena, their forms shifting and glowing in every shade imaginable. Metallic beings, scaled warlords, mist-like entities, and crystalline life forms all sat beneath the enormous dome that displayed the swirling galaxies overhead. The council had gathered for one reason only, to announce the beginning of the Terran campaign. At the center of the chamber stood Admiral Vrayan of the Scythe Dominion, a creature whose armor gleamed like liquid steel. He was the chosen commander of the United Galactic Fleet, and his voice carried with the weight of arrogance and pride. Within 7 cycles, he declared, the Terran domain will be under council control. Their colonies will surrender, their fleets will be dismantled, and their world will kneel. Humanity will understand what happens to those who defy the order of the stars. Applause echoed from every tier, but as the chamber celebrated, one delegate remained silent. She was small, wrapped in a simple dark uniform with a single silver pin on her collar, the symbol of Earth. Ambassador Lynn Aria watched the spectacle without emotion. She had been summoned to witness her world's sentence, a tradition meant to humiliate the condemned. The Arbiter of the Council turned toward her, its body glowing with the pale color of judgment. You are silent, human, it said. Do you not wish to defend your kind one final time before the fleets depart? Lynn's eyes met the Arbiter's shimmering form. You believe this is defense, she said calmly. It's not. It's warning. The words drew laughter from across the tiers. Admiral Vrain's voice rumbled. You think your fragile species can resist us? You have one homeworld, a few colonies, and primitive fleets. Even your allies abandoned you. Lynn's tone didn't change. And yet, for some reason, you sound nervous. The council chamber fell quiet for a heartbeat. Even the Arbiter seemed unsettled by her composure. Lynn continued softly. You call us fragile. That may be true, but fragile things learn quickly, Admiral. When something threatens us, we adapt. When we are outnumbered, we innovate. When we are cornered, she smiled faintly. We stop pretending to be harmless. Her final words echoed through the air before she turned and walked out of the chamber, her small figure swallowed by the towering corridor. The laughter resumed, but it carried an edge now, an unease that no one wanted to admit. When the fleets launched, the galaxy watched with pride. Thousands of ships from hundreds of species formed an armada that stretched across the void. The fleet's engines burned bright as it entered Terran space. The media called it a historic day, the day the human problem would finally end. But something felt wrong from the start. The first fleet entered the Alpha Eridani sector, expecting human defenses. Instead, they found empty stations orbiting lifeless moons. Every outpost was abandoned, but power signatures remained. Drones drifted in silence, broadcasting nothing but static. Admiral Vrayan ordered the ships forward, convinced it was a trap. Moments later, the static changed. A single human transmission pierced through every channel. It was a woman's voice, calm, distant, unafraid. "You shouldn't have come here." Then the entire system went dark. Thousands of ships lost contact simultaneously. Sensors failed. Gravity readings fluctuated. One by one, the fleet's reactors shut down as an unseen force moved through the formation. The last thing Vrayan saw before his ship's systems collapsed was a dark shadow passing across the stars. Something massive. Something cloaked. Back in the galactic capital, the council chambers buzzed with confusion. Reports arrived incomplete, distorted by interference. The Arbiter demanded an explanation, but every attempt to re-establish contact failed. Within hours, a second fleet was dispatched. This time, they approached cautiously, scanning every asteroid, every debris field. Yet the same silence greeted them. The once bright systems along the Terran border had gone completely dark, as if the humans had erased themselves from the map. On the Council's secure communication network, rumors began to spread. Captains spoke of hearing faint voices on their ship radios, voices that whispered coordinates and vanished before they could trace them. Some claimed to see flashes of human ships that disappeared when approached. Others said they found derelict vessels drifting in space with no crew and no signs of struggle. Only a single phrase written on the hull in crude human script: "We warned you." 3 days later, fragments of the first fleet ships were found orbiting a dead moon. Every vessel had been dismantled piece by piece as if studied. Not destroyed, disassembled, Admiral Vrayan was gone. His flagship's bridge was discovered sealed from the inside, with the final log recording a single sentence spoken in his voice: "They were already here." The council chamber erupted in panic when the report was read aloud. Some demanded immediate withdrawal. Others called for full extermination of the Terran species. But the Arbiter silenced them with a single gesture. "We are the law of this galaxy," it said. "We will not be mocked by primitives." From the lower tiers, Ambassador Lin appeared again. No one had seen her since the first session. She walked to the center calmly, holding a small device. "You've misunderstood us again," she said. "You think this is war. It isn't. It's a test, and you failed it." The Arbiter's tendrils flared in anger. "Explain yourself." Lin pressed the device and the holographic ceiling changed. It showed a map of the Council's outer colonies, then one by one, the lights representing their communication networks began to dim. Trade routes collapsed. Navigation buoys went offline. Civilian traffic vanished. "Those are your own systems," Lin said softly. "You built your infrastructure with Terran components. Navigation relays, supply algorithms, translation systems. You invited us to share our technology. You never wondered what else came with it?" A chill spread through the chamber. The Arbiter's form flickered for a moment as if trying to access data and failing. Lin continued, "The moment you declared war, we shut it off. Every ship that enters Terran space will vanish into its own blindness. You cannot fight what you cannot see." The chamber fell silent. No one moved. Then, without another word, Lin turned and walked toward the exit again. Outside, far from the Council's heart, humanity moved unseen. On the hidden worlds of the Terran domain, fleets that had never been recorded by galactic sensors assembled in silence. Ships with no identification codes and no visible weapons waited in the shadows of dead stars. Entire planets appeared uninhabited from orbit, their surfaces barren, until one looked deeper below the crust, where cities hummed with energy. The humans had not built for war. They had built for survival, and in that survival, They had become something far more dangerous than the Council expected. Lynn stood at the viewport of her transport as it left the galactic capital. The ship drifted through the cold void, far from the flashing lights of the city world. Commander Oren, her security officer, approached quietly. "They'll come for us," he said. "The Council won't stop until they think we're broken." Lynn's eyes never left the stars. "Then let them come. They still think we're playing by their rules." He frowned. "And we're not?" She shook her head slowly. "No, we never were." Behind them across the galaxy, the fleets of the Council gathered once more. This time they sent 500,000 ships into Terran space, but as they approached the silent systems once again, they found no resistance, no signal, no trace of life. Just darkness and echoes. Then a voice came through the static on every channel at once. It was unmistakably human. Calm, cold. Operation Black Dawn confirmed. Proceed. And as the signal ended, the lights of the galaxy began to fade, one by one. The Council did not yet understand what that meant. But soon they would. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council glowed with cold light as the session began. The air was thick with tension, the kind that even the soundless vacuum of space could not contain. Hundreds of alien representatives filled the spiral tiers of the hall, their eyes and sensors fixed on the small group standing at the center. At the heart of it all stood a single human woman, Ambassador Leon Ward, her hands clasped calmly behind her back. Above her, the ceiling shimmered with the projected image of the galaxy itself, millions of stars spinning in intricate patterns, and in the center of it all a faint blue dot marked Earth. Around that dot, dozens of red rings pulsed, the symbol of Council sanction and war. The arbiter of the Council hovered over the assembly, its translucent body flickering with golden light. Its voice rippled through every mind present. "Ambassador Ward of the Terran domain, this Council has declared your species in violation of interstellar law. The invasion of your worlds is underway. Your fleets will surrender. You have come here against order to beg for mercy. Speak your plea and let us end this farce." Leon did not bow. She did not tremble. Her gaze lifted to the arbiter as the echoes of its voice faded.
"I didn't come to beg," she said softly.
"I came to observe." The words drew uneasy murmurs. The arbiter's light pulsed darker. "Observe?" "Yes," she continued, her tone even. "Humans like to learn. It's what we do best. So when the most powerful organization in the galaxy accuses us of crimes we didn't commit, we come to listen, to see how your justice works." A sharp laugh came from one of the upper tiers. A creature of spined armor leaned forward. "Justice? You humans broke into protected space, built weapons on forbidden moons, and disrupted our trade networks. You are invaders, nothing more than animals who learned to build ships." Leon's eyes turned toward the alien without emotion. "If that were true," she said, "your fleets would have already returned victorious." The room went silent. The alien bristled. "Our fleets are vast. You cannot possibly resist." Leon raised a hand and the ceiling projection changed. The map of the galaxy flickered, showing the Council's armada scattered through Terran space. One by one, the ships began to disappear from the projection. Their signals faded until only empty void remained. "This is the live status of your invasion," she said quietly. "You sent 500,000 ships. You lost communication with 2/3 of them within 48 hours. The arbiter's form flickered. "How do you possess this data?" "That information is restricted." "Because you're using our systems," Leon replied. "Every communication relay, every data path that connects your fleets runs through Terran-made code. We built the infrastructure you use to monitor your own wars. You didn't think we left it unguarded, did you?" The chamber erupted in chaos. Voices clashed. Translators struggled to keep up. Accusations flew from every direction, but Leon stood still in the center of the storm, her expression calm. The arbiter's voice finally cut through the noise. "You speak of treachery, of manipulation. You admit your species has infected the Council's networks with hidden designs. This is an act of war." "It was you who declared war," she answered softly. "We only responded." The arbiter lowered itself until its glowing tendrils hovered inches from her. "What response? What could your kind possibly do against us?" Leon looked up, meeting its gaze with quiet defiance. "We waited." The chamber fell completely silent again. She turned toward the audience, her voice growing stronger. "You don't understand humanity. You see our faces and think we are weak. You hear our words and think we are harmless. You call us curious as if curiosity were something small. But curiosity is dangerous. It makes us learn your languages. It makes us study your weapons. It makes us understand your fears. And once we understand those, she paused, letting her words echo through the chamber. We use them. The lights flickered. The galaxy projection above began to distort, spreading static across its image. A moment later, the Council's communication systems crashed entirely. Emergency signals lit the walls as panicked delegates tried to restore control. Leon stood perfectly still as alarms echoed. "Do you see?" she asked. "We don't fight with numbers or strength. We fight with understanding. You built this empire to control chaos. We've learned to turn chaos into a weapon." The Arbiter's voice boomed through the noise. "What have you done?" "Nothing," she said simply. "We just turned off what was already yours." The lights in the chamber dimmed to red. External transmissions failed. For the first time in thousands of years, the Galactic Council was cut off from the rest of the galaxy. From the shadows of the back tiers, another alien rose, one of the smaller delegates, trembling. "Ambassador, what is it you want?" Leon turned toward him. "We want peace," she said. "But peace can't exist under a council that decides who lives and who dies. You call yourselves rulers of order, but all you rule is fear. You built your unity on submission. Humans don't kneel to fear. We adapt to it." The Arbiter's form flared in anger. "Your words will destroy you." "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe they'll destroy your illusion." The ceiling projection returned suddenly, but it was no longer the galaxy. It was live footage, images of council-controlled colonies. Massive ships hung motionless above alien worlds, their engines dark. Terran signals pulsed through their systems, taking command without firing a single shot. One after another, those ships began transmitting a message. The message was short. "Stand down. The Terran domain accepts your surrender." Gasps filled the hall. Delegates shouted, some in disbelief, others in fury. But before anyone could act, Leon held up her hand again. "This isn't a threat," she said. "We didn't destroy your fleets. We're giving them back to you. We only wanted to show you how easily they could have vanished." The Arbiter's light flickered erratically. "You disabled our fleets without firing?" "Yes," she said. "We could have done worse. But humanity doesn't want genocide. We only wanted to prove a point." The Arbiter struggled to regain composure. "And what point is that?" Leon looked directly into its glowing eyes. "You can't control us. You can threaten us, accuse us, even invade us. But you will never understand us. And that's what makes us dangerous." The Arbiter hovered motionless for several seconds before speaking again. "You think you've won something here. But all you've done is reveal your capacity for manipulation. The Council will not forgive this." Leon turned toward the chamber doors as security drones began to converge. "That's fine," she said. "We don't need your forgiveness. We already have your attention." She walked calmly toward the exit as the delegates shouted behind her. The heavy doors closed, leaving the Council in chaos. Outside, her escort waited, a small group of Terran envoys and one silent military officer. The officer spoke first, his voice low. "Did it work?" Leon exhaled slowly. "Better than we hoped. They think we just disrupted their systems. They don't realize we've been inside them for decades." The officer nodded. "And if they retaliate?" "They will," she said. "But by the time they do, they'll be fighting ghosts." Far away, deep in Terran space, human fleets were already moving. They didn't travel in formation or broadcast their presence. They slipped through the dark between stars, silent and invisible. Each ship carried technology the Council had never seen. Weapons that didn't rely on brute force but on precision and patience. Leon looked out through the viewport of her shuttle as the galactic capital shrank behind her. "They think power means control," she said softly. "But real power is knowing exactly when not to use it." As the ship jumped to faster than light speed, the Council's communication networks began to flicker again. Across the galaxy, panic spread as systems shut down in perfect sequence, all connected to a single source, Earth. In that moment, the galaxy realized something it had never understood before. Humans were not just survivors. They were strategists. They were predators that smiled. And their silence was never peace, it was preparation. Somewhere in the dark, a human signal pulsed once across the void. "We warned you." The Galactic Council chamber was darker than usual. The ambient lights dimmed as the emergency session began. 1,000 alien voices whispered across the grand hall, the air thick with tension. Every race represented in the curved tiers of the chamber knew why they were gathered. The humans were coming. For the first time, the Council's warship fleets had failed to return from a punitive mission. Entire armadas erased from existence, not a single distress beacon, not even drifting wreckage. Only silence. And in that silence, fear grew. The chamber lights flickered as the massive holographic projection of the Terran delegation appeared at the center. Their ambassador, Elias Ward, stood calm, a faint blue glow reflecting off his sharp features. His expression was neither anger nor arrogance, just quiet, steady control. "You summoned us," he said simply. His voice carried unnaturally well across the chamber, resonating through the Council's translation matrix. "I assume it's about your missing fleets." The lead counselor, a scaled being with 4 glowing eyes named Arthas, hissed softly, his tone bitter. "Do not mock us, human. You knew exactly what would happen when your people refused the Council's directive. Those fleets were sent to enforce order." Elias's gaze did not waver. "Enforce order," he repeated, "by burning our colonies, by attacking unarmed research stations. You call that enforcement?" He let the silence hang before continuing, his tone dropping into steel. "You didn't expect us to respond. That was your mistake." Around him, the murmur of the Council grew restless. The smaller species were whispering to each other, worried and confused. The larger empires looked uneasy. Everyone had seen the data, the unexplainable disappearance of their ships, the sudden emergence of Terran defense networks that had no recorded origin. Counselor Arthas slammed one of his massive claws on the podium. "You threaten the order of the galaxy, human. Do you think your small world can defy the will of thousands of civilizations?" Elias looked up at the sea of alien faces. "You call it order. We call it submission, and humanity doesn't do submission." The Council chamber erupted in a wave of outrage, voices overlapping in a storm of alien dialects. But Elias didn't move. He waited, patient as stone, until the roar died down. Then he said, quietly but clearly, "We offered peace. You sent fleets. Now you ask why your fleets don't return." In the upper tiers, one of the neutral delegates, a silvery avian creature named Kira L., leaned forward. Her voice was soft but trembling. "What did you do, human?" Elias turned toward her. "We defended ourselves. We didn't destroy your ships. You did when you entered our territory." The confusion rippled again. It made no sense. Every known defense network left digital traces, transmissions, weapon signatures, hyperspace residue. But the Terran domain left none. Their enemies vanished without proof of combat. Arthas's tone shifted, a mix of anger and fear. "You are lying. No species has such power." Elias finally smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "You've spent millennia fighting wars. You built your fleets to dominate others. You've forgotten how to fight for survival. Humans never did." The chamber quieted again, unease spreading like a virus. Elias's words hit deeper than they should have. Every empire had once risen through struggle, but humanity had risen from extinction's edge countless times. Then the chamber doors opened. The noise died instantly. 2 figures entered, escorted by the Council guard. They weren't guards. Though they were humans wearing black formal uniforms, the insignia of the Terran Strategic Directorate shining faintly on their collars. They carried a device, a cube of dark alloy, and placed it before the Council platform. "This is a recording," Elias said, turning slightly. "It's what your fleet saw before they disappeared." The cube hummed, and suddenly the chamber was filled with a projection, raw, unfiltered combat footage. Alien ships filled the void, firing in perfect formation. But then something strange happened. Space itself rippled. A dark wave spread across the stars, bending light. The fleet's weapons flickered, systems shutting down one by one. And then nothing. The ship simply vanished. The footage ended. Silence filled the hall once more. "What weapon is that?" demanded Arthas, his voice strained. "What have you created?" Elias looked at him calmly. "You assume it's a weapon?" Another counselor, smaller but sharper-eyed, spoke next. "Then what is it?" Elias didn't answer immediately. His silence was more terrifying than any declaration. Finally, he said, "A mistake you shouldn't have forced us to correct." The council erupted again, but not with anger this time, with fear. The smaller races began shouting for investigation, for sanction, for an immediate ceasefire. The larger ones demanded to know what the Terrans had built, what science they had uncovered. Elias stepped forward, voice rising just enough to cut through the noise. You all think you know the galaxy. You think it's mapped, measured, owned, but you've never looked beyond what you could control. Humans did, and we found what lies under the stars. Arthas bared his fangs.
You speak in riddles.
Elias looked directly at him. Do I? You wanted to invade our world. You called us cute, fragile. You thought humans would bow. Now your fleets are gone. And you still think this is about territory. His expression hardened. It's not. It's about survival. We learned long ago, when someone comes to kill your people, you don't negotiate. You end the threat. The council chamber trembled slightly. Not from shouting, but from something deeper. The holographic walls flickered for a moment. Several alien devices began to malfunction, their systems briefly going dark. Elias raised a small transmitter. That's your council's main relay system. We could shut it down. Right now. But we won't. Why? Kirahel asked softly, terrified. Elias looked almost sad. Because we still want peace. But you'll have to understand something first. Humans don't start wars. We finish them. He tapped the transmitter and the projection faded. The lights of the chamber flickered back to normal. For a moment, no one moved. The counselors stared at the Terran representative, uncertain whether they were facing a diplomat or a destroyer. Finally, Arthas hissed again, but weaker this time. You will regret this, human. Elias gave a faint smile. We rarely do. He turned and walked out of the chamber, his aides following in silence. As the massive doors sealed behind them, the counselors broke into chaos, some calling for negotiations, others for war. But in the depths of the chamber, even the most powerful races felt something they hadn't in centuries. Fear. Outside, in the silent void between stars, the Terran fleet moved unseen, their ships hidden by technologies no one else understood. And as they waited for orders from Earth, one message pulsed quietly through the hidden network of Terran command. If they come again, the message read, remind them why invading the Terran domain is a fatal mistake. And somewhere in the darkness, humanity smiled. Cute no more. The Galactic Council chamber glowed with cold light as thousands of delegates assembled. The air shimmered with holographic banners representing every major civilization in the galaxy. The room itself was carved from a moon orbiting the gas giant Varthos, its vaulted ceilings filled with star patterns that shifted slowly, mimicking the rotation of galaxies. Normally, the chamber was a place of order, of structured debate and polished diplomacy. But today, the atmosphere was different, charged, electric, almost fearful. Humanity had been summoned once more. At the center of the grand hall, a single circular platform rose from the floor, surrounded by hundreds of alien representatives seated in ascending tiers. On that small platform stood one human, Ambassador Elias Ward. He stood alone, without guards, without aides, wearing a simple dark uniform marked only with the silver crest of Earth. Around him, the council buzzed like a hive of angry insects. Counselor Arthas, the scaled leader of the Velak Dominion, leaned forward, his voice echoing through the hall. Ambassador Ward, humanity stands accused of violating galactic law, destabilizing 3 border sectors, and weaponizing forbidden technologies. How do you plead? Elias didn't flinch. His expression was calm, his tone almost too quiet for the microphone to catch. We don't plead. We answer. The entire chamber fell silent. The calmness of his voice carried more weight than any shouted defense could have. Arthas bared his fangs, his voice tightening with frustration. You defy the Council's authority again. Do you believe the galaxy will bow to your defiance? Elias raised his gaze slowly, meeting the alien's many eyes. We don't want the galaxy to bow. We want it to stop killing our people. The statement echoed through the chamber, sinking into the silence like a stone dropped into deep water. The lead counselor of the Cymar Collective spoke next, her translucent form flickering as she leaned closer. Your fleets destroyed ours. Your colonies expand into restricted zones. You have broken every law written by this council. Elias nodded once. Then maybe your laws are wrong. The chamber erupted into noise, a tidal wave of outrage and disbelief. Alien voices thundered from every direction. Some shouted for sanctions. Others screamed for war. The chaos grew until the council moderator activated a resonance pulse that silenced all voices instantly. The moderator, a towering being of silver tendrils, spoke slowly. Humanity has shown aggression. And yet your species remains untouched by retaliation. Every counterstrike fails. Every assault vanishes into void. Explain this, human. Elias took a breath. You want an explanation? His tone hardened. You want to understand why your fleets disappear when they cross into our territory? Why your weapons fail? Why your ships stop transmitting? The holographic recorders focused on him, projecting his image across the hall. His calm eyes reflected the cold light above. It's because you're fighting a species that doesn't think like you, he said quietly. You built your fleets to dominate. We built ours to survive. You fight for control. We fight for existence. And there's a difference, he paused, letting his words settle. Then he added, we learned from every predator that ever hunted us. Every empire that enslaved us. Every war that almost wiped us out. We learned how to make survival an art. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. None of them had expected this. Arthas hissed, empty words. You threaten, but you hide your strength behind shadows. Elias turned slightly toward him. You think we hide? No. We adapt. He lifted a small device from his belt and pressed it once. The chamber's vast holographic ceiling darkened instantly. The stars vanished, replaced by an enormous map of the galaxy. Thousands of colored markers appeared. Every known power, every empire's fleet, every trade lane. Then slowly the map zoomed in. A single region began to glow. The Terran domain. To everyone's shock, thousands of faint red symbols appeared across the map. Hidden stations, defense networks, automated relays, an entire system of interlocked infrastructure that had never appeared on any galactic registry. You thought Earth was small, Elias said softly. You thought we were alone. But while you debated and conquered, we built. Not to rule. Not to enslave. To protect. Counselors leaned forward, speechless. Elias continued, when your fleets invaded our borders, you triggered a network that you didn't even know existed. Quantum-linked defense systems, autonomous guardians, colonies hidden in deep time folds. You entered our domain and the domain erased you. We didn't destroy you. You never understood what you were entering. A shiver went through the hall. Even the coldest alien minds felt the weight of what was being revealed. One of the older counselors, a crystalline being named Thal, spoke slowly. You built all this. In secret? Elias looked at him evenly. No, you simply never noticed. You never looked at us long enough to see what we were capable of. Arthas slammed a claw down. You will dismantle this network. You will submit your technologies for inspection. Elias finally smiled. A quiet, almost weary expression. You misunderstand us again. Humans don't build to impress. We build because we refuse to die. The moderator leaned forward. If humanity refuses to comply, the Council will declare unified war against Earth. Elias looked up at the immense Council symbol glowing above. Then you'll learn what every empire learns when it turns its guns toward us. What is that? The moderator asked, voice cold. That cute little species from the blue world, Elias said, his voice steady, only looks harmless until you try to kill it. And then the chamber lights flickered again. This time not from malfunction but from interference. All across the Council systems, their networks began to slow, flicker, and fail. Screens glitched. Transmissions dropped. The massive galactic hologram shimmered and distorted into static. Panic spread as systems began to lock up. Elias pressed another control on his wristband. We're not attacking you, he said calmly. We're just showing you what would happen if we did. And just as suddenly as it began, the interference stopped. The chamber returned to normal, you see? Elias said. You're alive. We don't want your worlds. We don't want your wealth. We want peace. But peace doesn't come from obedience. It comes from respect. You'll have to decide whether you can give us that. He turned to leave. As he reached the edge of the platform, he stopped and looked back at the stunned assembly. Humans are not your enemies, he said softly. But we are not your subjects either. Then he walked away. The chamber doors closed behind him with a deep echo that lingered long after he was gone. Inside, silence reigned. The Council sat frozen, unsure whether to breathe, to shout, or to run. For the first time in the long history of the Galactic Council, every empire understood the same truth. They had looked at humanity and seen something small, something manageable, something to control. They were wrong. Outside, in the cold black of space, the Terran fleets drifted like shadows between the stars, unseen but always watching. And somewhere deep beneath the cloud layers of Earth, Within the command core of the Terran domain, a message pulsed quietly across the hidden network. The Council has seen enough. If they strike again, we end it. The reply came from Earth's surface, simple and final, understood. Humans are cute until they're not.